Hi everybody, it is Thursday, and even though I thought I was going to take a day and just rest, I felt remarkably well today. So I thought, hey, why waste a day when my hands are working good and I can put on makeup? So here I am. I also wanted to come on today because tomorrow I have a busy day. I've got some stuff I've got to do in town. I get to leave my house. The husband's taking me to town. And so I probably won't be around tomorrow, but I wanted to do a video today because I've had a lot of parents respond to me and say, hey, thank you for the fear monster. It was a great exercise. And while you know what, my friendly advice on here certainly doesn't replace professional help or one-on-one counseling with your children. It's just friendly advice as to, hey, this is how they process things. This is how their minds are working. This is how you may want to start thinking. But I'm glad that, some people are having some discussions with their children and doing some, important dialogue and important activities. They've asked me, what else can I do with a child that is angry and defensive and aggressive? Why does that occur? Well, in my knowledge of my working history, normally the aggressiveness is it's a defense mechanism. So they're being aggressive because they've always felt someone be aggressive to them. So when you have aggressive children, it's very important to never get aggressive with them because that's what pays their bills. They're good at that. That's like walking into the ring with a master. That is literally like stacking rocks against Yoda. It's not going to end well. You don't need to do it. Well, the biggest thing that you can do when you have somebody that's in your home, a young child or a young adult or a foster child or a family member that is aggressive, don't ever respond in an aggressive manner. Be sure that you appropriately know how to disengage. And sometimes that means just walking away, leaving the property, getting air, giving space and time, and letting a cool down session begin. When you speak to them, and you do come back and everybody's calmed down and you speak to them, you need to be sure that when you speak to them and you ask them questions or you ask them to do things, my nose is itching, that you give them options. And this is important because when you ask a teenager to do one thing, that one thing becomes lava on the floor and it can't be touched. So you need to give them options. Much like cattle being driven down a one-lane chute, if they see one gate, they will balk immediately. Even if it's open to a green field, they will stop and wonder, what is beyond that threshold that I'm being coaxed toward? But if they have two options, guess what? They'll choose one freely. Something in our psyche just says, hey, if I have an option, I feel more secure in making a decision because I believe that decision is mine. Whether it's not, really or not, the belief that it is great. So when I had angry teenagers, and yes, I had angry teenagers, I actually was blessed with really good kids. Honestly, I really was. But, they tried my patience every once in a while. So when I had teenagers that wanted to try my patience, I would say, listen, you can either do this or you can do that. Pick one. And roll with it. But roll with it away from me because we need some space. My daughter and I, for a couple years, was really contentious. Oh, Lord Jesus, young little girls are so much harder to raise than boys. Girls, women are, they're very, how can I say this? They're more cerebral in their tactics to harm. It rolls around in there for a while like a marble at a rolly hole chute before it settles. And when it settles, it finds the best place to settle where it can do the most harm and get them the most points. Match over. So one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to always handle the things the same way with young ladies, because young ladies get into that cerebral mindset where they start planning the attack. You need to shake things up. Don't give them the opportunity to plan the attack. Shake things up. Change your tactics. My daughter was... If I tried to point out something immediately, a behavior that I needed to let her know that's incorrect, that's that's flawed, that's going to cause you problems, it's a deficit, we can't have that, mama's fixing to absolutely, turn into Satan, we need to chill. If I were to say those things, it would just escalate the issue. So I needed a way to allow her to know that she'd irritated me, and I needed a way for her to know that that I'd irritated her. We got dog clickers. Those little clickers you do when you training dogs? And so, like, for the whole weekend, if I heard something that irritated me, or she did something irritated me, I'd click it and I'd look at her and then I'd write it down. I'd timestamp it and write it down. And she'd do the same for me. And then when we were a few days spaced away from it, we went down and we sat down, we talked about it. And there, we were not as emotionally attached to it then. So we could kind of talk about it. And then we actually had a good laugh about how we dog clicked at each other all weekend. So get creative. Use, for smaller children, if they wake up in their horrible demeanors, do a stop sign, red, yellow, green. Did you wake up on red this morning? Nobody needs to engage with you. Put your clothespin on red. Did you wake up in maybe put it on yellow. If you're good to go this morning, put it on green. Let your family know. Have check-ins. If they have punishments, I would make punishment cubes, and it was punishments that were going to give them exercises to do. Breathe deep 15 times. Walk for 3 minutes in a circle. Talk to your animal, your pet, for 4 minutes. Only giving compliments to your pet. And it was silly little things that distracted them, but it was making them do positive things. It was making them do things that would calm them down or put them in a different headspace and anchor them back to earth instead of way up here in La La Land with the anger. And by the time, when it's bad enough when a parent says you have a punishment, but the child, when they, if the parent says roll the punishment cube, they don't pin that punishment on the parent as much. So they roll the punishment cube, and the punishment cube dictates the punishment. I tell parents all the time, write a behavioral contract. Do this back and forth with your children. These are the words I do not want you to say. These are behaviors that are not okay in this house. These are things that will result in immediate repercussions. And ask your child the same thing. What are words that really hurt when I say them to you that you want me to erase from my vocabulary? What are behaviors that you feel that come on too strong, or that put you in a place where you don't mentally or emotionally want to be? Sign your behavioral contract and refer to it often and talk about it. These are all things that people think, oh, that's silly. But when you sit down and go through it, not only do you give your child the time that they're seeking, you're saying you're important enough for me to do these things. You're important enough for me to put some thought into your emotional and mental well-being. And you're important enough for me to try to find some way to fix this and resolve this issue. That's going to do more for your relationship than probably anything that, that you've probably done at this point so far. Without really having a person in a one-on-one counseling session or a one-on-one behavioral where I can witness behavior, it's hard to understand completely where the behavior is going and what the mindset is. So that's why I say none of this replaces therapy, counseling, or professionals. This is just friendly advice from my time in working within the system and with children. So that being said, there's one other thing I want you all to do with your children. I want you to find a positive role model that you both look up to. And it doesn't have to be an older role model. It can be a role model that is the child's age. Let the child help in picking their role model. Parents, you are the person that can veto the role model. But if you veto the role model, you must veto the role model with actual evidence as to why we don't need to follow this role model. So if you veto the role model, you better have your ducks in a row and say, this is why we cannot put him in a role model position. He was arrested last year for domestic violence. He's had drug charges. He uses inappropriate language in many of his songs that I can't approve of. And, you as a parent can set those boundaries with your child. That's not anything that I can do for you. But find a role model, and try to find a role model of the same sex or the same orientation, something they can really identify with. It's very difficult to find role models this day and age. It's terribly difficult. I was lucky. I had Freddie. I wear Freddie tattoos and Freddie necklaces. Almost everywhere I go, I'm covered in Freddie. And, he impacted my life when I was young because I did not have the best childhood. But I miraculously had this music that took that pain and that animosity away, and it, I was taken to this happy place where I processed things and I thought about things other than what I was going through. If I had not had that music, well, goodness, I would not be the same person. I was a very quiet child, but when I finally had to break away and become my own person, it was a very painful break. And I almost had to start defending myself to the point where I was turning into what I did not want to be. And I had to check my behavior. And on top of that, a bad marriage and divorce, and there for about 4 years, it was a roller coaster ride in my life. And I had to sit down and actively write down, this is going wrong. This is what I want. This is how I correct it. These are the steps I take. And I had to have a plan, and I needed to see it in black and white. And then I needed to go back to my role models. I went straight back to the things that made me happy as a teenager. I went back to my music. And once again, kind of got back in contact with myself, back in connection. I really remembered who I wanted to be in this world, and it helped tremendously. So much so that in 2016, my husband sent me to the North American Queen Convention, and I was able to meet Peter Freestone, who was Freddie's personal assistant until his death, and is one of the kindest and most generous men that I've ever met. Literally, his hugs just make the world go away, and I can understand why Freddie wanted him in his life. That, for me, was coming full circle in my world. Being able to meet somebody that I looked up to, that because I'd watched all of his interviews, and I knew the role that he played in Freddie's life. So being able to meet him made all of that real to me, and made it even more important to know that this is the anchor that helped me in a lot of ways. Now, for many of you, you may have a faith-based anchor. I am a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, but not a religious person. We'll just say that. But if you have a higher power or a higher authority or something that you are responsible to other than yourself, that you put above yourself, you're going to have a lot easier path in learning how to respect others and have empathy, sympathy, and harness yourself and check your negativity. And that is just because you then keep yourself subjected to something that you believe is a guiding post for your behavior and lifestyle. Not to say that it's going to stop you from doing horrible things. Obviously, we see these things in the news every day. It's not. But it is just another checkpoint. So if you do not have, a religious component, I don't care if you pray to your cat Bubba, as long as you hold yourself accountable for behaviors and you reflect and kind of meditate and kind of resonate that the world is bigger than you. That is also role modeling, a good thing for your children to understand that they're not the end all be all. I told my teenagers all the time they would wake up in a horrible mood, and I would be like, do you need some preparation H? Oh my God, I just thought about the preparation H again. That's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. But I would ask my kids, do you need some preparation H? And they'd be like, Mom, why? And I was like, oh, because obviously you think you got up this morning and crapped out the sun. And they'd be like, no. And then they would check themselves. So try to have a humorous approach to it too. Know your child before you try that. But humor does much better with straight anger, animosity, or feeling like a dictator. Choose your words carefully. Words have power beyond comprehension. Just going to say that. Also wanted to say, if you can't find a role model, let me tell you about one really quickly. A few years ago, I was digging through Facebook, and a young boy that lives about an hour and a half from me, I noticed a music clip online. And I watched his mannerisms, and I picked up immediately on the fact that he was on the spectrum. Reached out to his mother, confirmed. He has one of the most uplifting stories. He was born diagnosed early, had a mother that thankfully worked in the field and was quick to understand there was something going on, quick to get professional help, quick to get the diagnosis, quick to get the help that he needed. And then they bought him a guitar just to, keep him going, to keep him working on verbalizing, singing, engaging, socializing. They really amped it up to where they said, hey, you know something? Not only are we going to defeat this, we're going to overkill it by 50, and you're just going to be an awesome, amazing singer. And guess what? He is now 17, and he's doing phenomenal. I actually started a blog spot for him at the end of the year. I'm really that dedicated to this young man. His name is Ethan Vincil, Vincil. He runs a YouTube channel called Ethan Vincil Music. He has overcome the stigma of autism. He has overcome the barriers and the boundaries that it creates in the social capacity. And he is one of the most genuinely talented young men that will sit down and tell you that really what it takes to overcome these things is hard work. So I recommend you go check out Ethan Vincil Music. I'll put a link in the description below. Find a role model. If you don't have a role model and you like that old kind of Southern outlaw country, he sings a lot of that. He also does a whole lot of gospel for his mama because he loves his mama and she loves to listen to that. I think the young man's going to be a star, but I support him in everything he does, and he's a great role model. He's a great advocate if you have a child that's struggling with those same things. This is somebody they can look up to and say, hey, I'm going to seek guidance and comfort because I know that you can overcome this. I can overcome this. So please check him out. Those are things I want you to work on this weekend. And that's kind of all that I wanted to drop for today because I've done so much this week and I've been coming out of a neuromuscular flare, and so I've had to slow down and think about me and worry about me. I'm not swollen anymore. Can you see? I have a chin when I'm not. Y'all can tell when I'm in a flare, can't you? It's kind of, it shows. I'm doing better today. Oscar has been a lovely little companion and confidant through it all, so no need to worry about me. Cats are not showing me so much love, but they're outside and I'm inside, so that's probably why. But me and Oscar have fared through this flare pretty well. I can't complain. Doing pretty good. Actually caught a live with one of my new friends on YouTube today. I finally caught her live and had such a good time. I may actually just put a link to her channel down below too, because she's going to do a live stream tomorrow. There's really just a celebration for anybody that has health issues or just needs a pick-me-up through the day. I'll put a link down to her page tomorrow, and she does a live on Fridays, which is just leave your baggage at the door, come in, listen to music, talk, and have a good time. It's great for us mature women that like to get together and just kind of have some fun, cackle like a bunch of old hens, and just laugh, because we need to end the week on a great note. So that's about all I'm going to say today. Work on those issues. Send me any and all questions, concerns, comments down below. You know, maybe we'll do the this and that Thursdays just to see what I have left over on my phone at the end of the week, and just start because I send stuff to my friends and my kids all the time on Messenger. So we may do that on a regular, just so you can see how crazy my life is. The funniest thing I said this week was a picture of a can of green beans that said, my green beans come from a jar. And I said it just like that. And I just sent it to like 3 of my best, closest friends to see how they would respond. And we ended up like with a 3-day tangent on what was in our pantries and how funny we could say it. Sometimes you just got to do crazy things to get through the hard days in life. And it's okay. It's okay to be a little crazy sometimes, because what's the option? The other option is just like depression and insanity if you're handling a heavy load. So, you know, this week, I worked on unloading my emotional wheelbarrow and making sure that I didn't have anybody else's emotional rocks in my wheelbarrow. And I did that a lot this week because of my health. And I think this year I'm going to do that a whole lot and make it just like every couple of weeks. I make sure that I've not taken on something I shouldn't and put somebody else's emotional well-being in my wheelbarrow. I only want my emotional well-being rocks in my wheelbarrow. Don't make your load any heavier than you have to. I'm going to work on that this year. Okay, y'all have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. And we'll see what we can get into next week. I need ideas. And upgrade is coming next week. It's going to be fun. It's also going to take me a few days to learn how to edit. Be patient with me. I said I was educated. I never said I was smart.